Hey, class, Humanities 4, Shasta College, Film Studies. This is the last day of March. And the last chance we'll have to get together before the spring break. I hope you all have had time to look at the documentary, Easy Ring Bulls, that's posted on Canvas. Better watch it soon because I'm going to post some questions from a quiz tomorrow, and you'll have about 12 hours to finish it. So I'll probably assign it in the afternoon, have it due midnight or something. I'll figure it out. But you'll have limited time to sign to do it. I'm doing it that way so that it's fair for everybody. He doesn't put, so if you all want to get together in one room and answer this questions, you can, but it makes it a little more difficult if I put a time limit on it. I used to do this quiz in class, and I used to give people an hour to do it. Now I'm going to let you have the whole 12 hours, and it could be, it might help to have the text. It might definitely help to listen to my lectures, what I've been saying for the last 10 weeks. So all the secrets are all there. And it'll be, it's the midterm quiz. It'll probably be the only quiz I do this year. We'll see how I feel. But I think it'll be the only one. And so you guys can take a break from doing the papers. Like I said, I'll post it tomorrow. Then I won't see you guys for a week. Go off and frolic and do whatever it is you do. Hunt for Easter eggs. If that's your thing, good luck with that. And I'll see you after we get back from the break where the story of cinema will continue. But before that is over, I've got a story to tell you today. Tomorrow's April Fool's Day, so even though I'm going to give the quiz, it's not a joke, it's for reals. Okay, so on that happy note, if by chance you haven't listened to this week's lectures or seen my announcements or seen the video you're supposed to watch, well, then you'll probably get a 0 for the points. What can I say? You got to be up to date, pay attention. There you go. Okay, so today we're going to talk about a movement in film that was very brief, and it was even more brief than the documentary I want you guys to watch. And that documentary does not cover any of these films, which is a little surprising to me. That's the downfall of that documentary, because there was a sub-genre of films coming out of Hollywood that were very important. And starting, it's called Blaxploitation films, influenced by Grindhouse films. I'll explain that in a second. Blaxploitation because it was black writers and directors, black actors, black stories. And it started with 2 films that are very important to cinema history. One by Melvin Van Peebles called Sweet Sweetback Badass, and a very low budget film that was made for a couple $100,000 in LA, starring Melvin Van Peebles. He's up against fighting the law and corrupt drug dealers and the whole shebang. And it's an awkward film. It's not a very subtle film at all. But if you can watch it, please do. It's entertaining. It's funny. It's brutal. Very sexual. And it became a social phenomenon. What happened was, when he made this movie, he was looking at movies and he was saying, where are the films that a black audience can relate to? Yes, these great films that were coming out in the 70s, from The Godfather to Badlands to Mean Streets to all the ones that's in that documentary, I want you to watch. That's basically Quiz, Easy Rider, Bonnie and Clyde, the whole bit. You got to look at it close. There's no African Americans in any of it, I would say. So it's not representing a large part of our American culture, which is the African American audience. Melvin was he's still alive, folks. His son is Mario. Maybe you've heard of him. He has a successful film career. He's written and directed some movies. But Melvin was a smart old jazz beatnik type of dude, and he saw an opportunity to make movies for a black audience. He felt that the African American community wasn't being served. They weren't. And so he decided to make this film. And later on, it's been analyzed and critiqued, but some people say he's making a political statement. Some think he's not making that statement at all, that it's inferred, whatever. But it is definitely black people against the white establishment in the movie, and the cops being the white establishment. And familiar story. Think about what we're going through right now. What's changed? Anyway, so he released these films in inner city movie theaters in places like Detroit, Chicago, New York City, Pittsburgh, Cleveland, LA, South Central LA, where the African Americans lived. And they really took to the film. They finally see something that they could root for, the hero. And it's interesting because he's being pursued by the cops, and in most films, when a black man is pursued by the cops, he is ended up either in prison or killed. And guess what? He gets away in this one. And that's the catchphrase. He gets away. Wow. And he does not get killed by the white establishment. He gets away. And that was a big deal. That gave the black community hope that it's okay to go up against the white establishment and not be killed for it, or thrown in jail for the rest of your life. So, what was phenomenal about this movie when it came out in about 1970 or thereabouts was that white college students were showing up. They had heard about it. Students that are going to film schools and universities in these inner cities I mentioned, they were showing up too, and they dug it. And this perked up Hollywood's eyes and ears and started them to thinking. But before that happened, another director, Gordon Parks, who was known as a photographer, a very famous photographer, for all the big magazines in the day, but long before your time, but they had Life and Look magazine and other magazines. He was known as a very well-respected photographer. Well, he started directing films, and his film that he directed that put Blaxploitation films seriously on the map was a film called Shaft. Shaft was written for a white guy. It's about a private detective who is fighting corruption on both sides, the white side and the black side. He's against corrupt cops. He's against gangsters. So when they saw the possibility that a film starring a black actor could do well at the box office, they decided to recast, and they put in Richard Roundtree, a very fine leading man who was handsome and sexy. He was sort of like a black James Bond type of character, smooth and slick, and he gets the girl, folks. and nobody pushes him around. They got a soundtrack that Isaac Hayes did. It's a famous song, Shaft. Maybe you've heard it. It's been played on the radio for the last 50 years. Maybe you've heard it somewhere. It became a huge hit. This movie started playing, and it was even more popular than Melvin Van Peebles' films. People in white cities in America, from Florida to Seattle, went to this film, and the audiences were divided between white people and black folks. They all dug it. Everybody enjoyed the entertainment, and they all related to it. What does this mean? Does this mean that there's money to be made, and Hollywood always likes to make a buck? That's really what they're about. And so up until then, yes, we'd had some black leading men, very few. Sidney Poitier would be the most famous one. And he did some of the finest films of the 20th century, from The Defiant Ones to In the Heat of the Night. Then he became a director and directed his own films like Buck and the Preacher, which is a great Western, I think. White audiences dug him. He was from the West Indies. He was handsome, tall, and white people liked him as well as black people. They related to him. And so he usually played in his movies the hero, like In the Heat of the Night. He's a good cop that's in a racist town. It's a great movie, by the way. And he's fighting against racism, and he's always righteous. And he wins because he's stronger than his white opponents. There was other film actors at the time, like Harry Belafonte, who was a huge singer, famous singer in the 50s, 60s. And he did some acting, and people really took to him too, also, I should say, also. But there was very few leading men that the film they're in was based on their character. And Sidney Poitier changed all that. He became a major movie star. But that was about it, folks. And for every 400 white movie stars, there's one black movie star. So what are we doing? Well, this genre that was now being called Blaxploitation, which is not the most complimentary genre, because exploitation it's black exploitation. They're exploiting the culture, exploiting gangsterism, exploiting drug dealers. What are they exploiting? It's like in the documentary I want you guys to watch over the break. Samuel Jackson said, "I'm not exactly sure why it's called that. What are they exploiting?" Well, like any movement that there's a quick buck to make, exploitation comes into it. What sells? Sex sells. All of a sudden, if a black hero sells, that sells. Is it exploitation? Maybe. Movies is all about making money. And let me tell you, Melvin Van Peebles wanted to make money also. He just wasn't making a political statement with his films. There was some other some of these films I put them up against any white filmmakers. Another really good one, Superfly with the great Ron Neal. He did this documentary I want you to watch over the next week. I'll post it on Canvas. You'll see it. And I want you to start having a discussion about it over the break. Yes, you're going to have to do something over the break. And I want you to discuss your relationship with black cinema. What is it? Do you have one? And in the last couple of years, black cinema has started to percolate and come up and make money. A lot of it's in the horror genre. Superheroes, yes, folks. Black Panther, you know what I'm talking about. And some of these movies, written by black writer directors, starring black actors, are making money. And so things are changing. But this is 45 years or so after these first bunch of films came out. What took them so long? Well, Hollywood is a racist machine. It really is. A sexist machine. They exploit sex. They exploit race, anything for a dollar. And they don't usually do the right thing unless they have to. When they do the right thing, it's a win-win for everybody. That documentary I want you to watch, the quiz is going to be based on, which I'm going to post the questions tomorrow. Easy Rider, Raging Bulls. For a few years, 8 or 9, 10 years, Hollywood was doing the right thing. They were making meaningful films for an audience that needed meaning, not just entertainment, not just special effects. They needed something deeper than that. And for a few years, brief period in time, 69 to 80 or thereabouts, that's what was happening at the movie theater. And these movies made money. Not the kind of money they make now, but they made money. So, Superfly is a story about a drug dealer. And he is super cool, Ron O'Neill, and he wants to do one more drug deal and get out of the business. And his gangster friends are saying you can't get out. The cops are after him. He wants out, but he's getting pressured from all the way around. How is he going to get out? It's got a great soundtrack by Curtis Mayfield. Maybe you've heard of him. It was hit album, hit songs. These songs are on the radio when I was in school. There were women in the movement. Pam Grier is a great example. She made many of these films. Coffee. Pam Grier was almost a one-woman genre to herself. Her movies all were exciting, fun, entertaining, brutal. Lots of violence, folks. Lots of nudity and sexuality. And Pam's character is usually seeking revenge. And boy, does she seek it. And she goes up against all these weak men, white and black. There were other actresses like Tamara Dobson, who did Cleopatra Jones, who was in the form of, she was a karate expert, and she's karate chopping her way through all sorts of things. In Japan at the time, there was a movement based on our movement here in the 1920s, believe it or not, folks, called the Grindhouse. Grindhouse, low-budget kung fu movies, low-budget karate movies, coming out of Japan mostly. Without these films, I'm talking about the Blaxploitation films, the Grindhouse films coming out of Japan, Quentin Tarantino wouldn't have a career. He's on the documentary I want you guys to watch about, talk about. Because he's very, very influenced by these films. In fact, he steals from these films in a very clever way. He still is. Hateful Eight, he's still stealing from these films. Django, Unchained. These are sort of Grindhouse exploitation films in a really clever, smart, entertaining way. So these films were getting noticed. They were making money, and they made stars out of these people briefly. Well, what happened was white Hollywood is looking at it and go, hold on, we could do these movies, but we could do them better because we got more. We got the system here, we got the studios, we've got the directors, and so they started hiring white directors and white writers to make black exploitation films. They didn't get it. Hollywood usually never gets it. And within a couple years, everything had got so watered down that these films are rather embarrassing. Like, for example, they would take feature films like The Godfather, and they would make their own gangster movie called Black Caesar, and about a gangster in the 30s. They would take a horror film like Dracula, and they made Blackula. I'm not exaggerating, folks. Look at it. You can get it. I think it's on YouTube for free. And all of a sudden, they started these films. Then they became rather silly. And they took the genre, which was lean and mean and smart and had something to say. They kind of made it into a sort of a joke. It was. And within 5 years, there were no more Blaxploitation films. It was over that fast. Once the press started getting hold of these movies like Blackula and Black Caesar and many, many more, the writing was on the wall. It was over that quick. So, what happened? Who killed the genre of Blaxploitation film? Well, what always happens is the film industry eats its own, folks. They'll start something and they'll kill it with their fervor belief that they know better. So, that's all I'm going to talk about today. Keep this short and sweet. Grindhouse, as far as maybe you've seen Tarantino's movie called Grindhouse. He directed with Robert Rodriguez. He loves the Grindhouse films. It's a term that really actually goes back to the silent era when in burlesque, which was kind of a naughty vaudeville where women coming in and stripping and stuff, and guys doing horrible jokes. But people making up this for years before really film kind of killed off that industry. Burlesque had this term bump and grind, and meaning get out there and bump and grind for your tips. If I have to explain what bump and grind is, I'm just going to say, think about what a stripper does on a pole, folks. They're bumping and grinding. And so the Grindhouse term was adapted from that, and it really meant low budget exploitation type of films that usually were kind of on the seedy side. That's a fact. And but it had been elevated in the 70s. Japanese Grindhouse films, the samurai films, are really well done. They're not seedy. They're not bumping and grinding, but they are grinding them out. And a lot of karate movies, kung fu movies starring Bruce Lee. Maybe you know who that is. And they too made a lot of money. There's a director over there, a producer named Run Shaw, who cranked these things out. If you've seen Kill Bill, have you seen Tarantino's Kill Bill 1 and 2? Well, her character, Uma Thurman's character, trains with a Japanese master, a sword master, karate master. That's all taken from Run Shaw's films, the Grindhouse films, starring Bruce Lee and many others. Maybe you've seen some of those. Enter the Dragon is probably one of the most famous ones. Made a lot of money. And Bruce Lee died tragically of a drug overdose, folks, at I think 36 years old. And he started a whole genre of action films that people like. Oh, come on. I'm drawing a blank right now. They're still making, he's done so many movies. He's actually not from China. He's from China. Jackie Chan. And he's in the tradition of these Grindhouse movies. Fun, entertainment, lots of action, and kind of over the top action. Not necessarily realistic. Just look at Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon, and that the fighting in that movie is what you would not call realistic. It's a great film, though, by the way. Anyway, so here we have Ang Lee, the great Ang Lee, directed that film. Okay, so the quiz. I'm going to post the questions mañana, Thursday, April Fool's Day. Sorry, get them in by Friday, okay? Or forever hold your peace. I want you guys to watch this documentary I'm going to sign. I'll post it. You have plenty of time to watch it. It's a Blaxploitation documentary. It's less than an hour. And then start a conversation. I'll post all this in discussions about your relationship to black cinema. If you have one, if you don't, do you want one? Do you not care? Does it mean everything to you? Does it mean nothing? Do you seek it out? Do you want more? Do you want less? You tell me. Be free with your comments. Be kind to your comments. Let's don't get rude or crude or racist out there. We don't need that. We're in college. We're better than that. But have a lively conversation. I'll keep prompting you because I'm going to pop in and see if you guys are cooperating out there. And then when we get back after the break, we're going to have, I think, one more essay, right? Or is it two? Maybe two more. And that'll be it for the essays. And then you're going to have a final paper, which you're going to have to, I'll talk about that then. Blaxploitation, Grindhouse. It's a fun genre. Go out there and seek some of this stuff out. You will not be disappointed. Yes, folks, it's all in color. It's all in sound. Although the Japanese films are all usually poorly dubbed. But that's half the fun, right? So, on that note, remember, everything is cinema. And look for the questions tomorrow on your quiz. And I'll see you guys next time when the story film continues.